cigarettes. There's no running on board. You are on a boat. You are not going to get very far. Bathrooms are located at the stern of the boat on the very first deck. Speaking of the word stern, for those of you who don't know, the back of the boat is called the stern. The front of the boat is called the bow. The right side is called the starboard side, and the left side is called the port side. So if you hear me using those terms throughout the tour, that's what I mean. By the way, most of what I'm going to talk about today is going to be to the right side of the boat. So as long as you can see to the right side, you'll be good. So welcome aboard, everyone. This is kind of it until it starts to snow, to be honest. I feel that it's all downhill from here. It's not a good thing to say at the beginning of a tour, but welcome. So we have just pulled out a Long Wharf. Long Wharf was built in 1710. It is the oldest continuously used wharf in the country. This is also where the British soldiers evacuated from at the end of the Revolutionary War in defeat for the very last time on March 17, 1776. Coincidentally, March 17th is also St. Patrick's Day, and we have a lot of Irish people in Boston, so they throw a big party, big parade on that day for those two reasons. Now, Long Wharf originally was a third of a mile long. Clearly, it is not that long anymore, and that's because man-made land has been filled in on either side of the wharf. By the way, 3/4 of Boston is on man-made land. That's a lot of land, if you think about it. In fact, from where this boat is right now, all of the land you can see from every single side of the boat is man-made. How on earth did he create so much land? Well, Boston was built on the Shawmut Peninsula. Shawmut is a Native American term for living waters. This is in reference to the 3 surrounding hills that had fresh springs running through them. This was Beacon Hill, Pemberton Hill, and Mount Vernon. And they created this land by a process called wharfing out, in which they built wharves out into the water. They built a wall in between 2 wharves. They filled in the empty space with earth from these 3 surrounding hills displacing the water. Built another wall, filled that space with earth, etc., 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 over many, many years, thus creating 3/4 of the land in Boston. Just an incredible feat to have accomplished. Now to the right side of the boat, past these beautiful sailboats, you're going to see this shorter rusty bridge right here. This is the Northern Avenue Bridge. It's a turnstile bridge that is stuck in the open position. It has been stuck like this for years. And they're finally going to take it down and build a beautiful new pedestrian walkway. But I mentioned that bridge because beyond it is where Griffin's Wharf used to be. And that's where the Boston Tea Party happened. You may have heard of the Boston Tea Party. So on December 16, 1773, a group of patriots, including Sam Adams, were very angry about the heavy taxation of tea and other goods from the British, especially because they were not being represented in their own country. And so in protest, they threw an entire cargo of tea off of 3 Nantucket merchant ships. This was 92,000 pounds of loose leaf tea. A lot of tea. And they did this stating no taxation without representation. This is one of the sparks of the American Revolutionary War. To the left of the Northern Avenue Bridge, we're passing this brick building with the wave of glass in front. This is the John Joseph Moakley Federal Courthouse. And that wave of, I know it's kind of like right underneath the sun. The sun's kind of in our eyes. That's one of the downfalls of the 230 tour. That wave of wave of glass is here to represent a wave of justice coming over the city. A lot of famous people have been tried here at this courthouse. Whitey Bulger, famous South Boston gangster, was put on trial here. And if anyone remembers the college admissions scandal that happened a couple of years ago, Lori Loughlin was also put on trial here as well. She actually had more paparazzi than Whitey Bulger did. I don't know what that says about her. So everything to the right side of the boat right now is South Boston. If you lived here today, you call it South. If you were here in 1630, you call it South Bay, because it is entirely man-made land. More specifically, we are passing the Innovation District, with all these glass buildings here. Pretty newly constructed district. I will point out the shorter glass building that's in front of the building that says Goodwin. This is the Institute of Contemporary Art. The second most visited art museum in Boston. By the way, this building, this was built in 2006, and until 2013, that was the tallest building in the district. So that's going to tell you how brand new this entire district really is. Another cool thing about the Institute of Contemporary Art, every other year, Red Bull will sponsor their annual cliff diving competition on it. So they bring in professional divers from all over the world, and they will dive off of that short glass building 90 feet into the water. I don't know why anyone would ever want to do that, but they did it this year. They did it in June. It was pretty cool. All right, get out your cameras. We're about to see the best view in Boston. You ready? We're being on this boat. It's us. There we are. You can wave to yourself. That's us. I love that effect. They built that a couple of years ago. Yeah, I know. They built that a couple of years ago. But anyways, yeah. So people will jump off of that building that have those people walking around in there. Pretty insane. Sponsored by Red Bull, because you probably need a lot of Red Bull before you jump. I worked to sneak myself out. And now we're passing Commonwealth Pier. On top of Commonwealth Pier used to be the South Boston World Trade Center. Now they're doing a lot of construction. They're going to be putting in some shops and some restaurants. This will be a beautiful new expansion to our innovation district. Construction is supposed to be finished 2024, so I would imagine that summer this is going to be a pretty popular place to go to. This is where the cruise ships in Boston used to dock. They don't come in this far into the main part of the city anymore, because now there are tunnels that run underneath the water. But as you get out a little bit further, I'll make sure to mention those tunnels and show you where the cruise ships do dock today. We don't have any in today, but we did have a pretty giant one in yesterday. So now we're passing the South Boston Fishing Pier. It's the oldest fishing pier in the country. You might notice there are some boats that are docked to either side of the pier. So these boats are called stern draggers, because at the stern of the boat, or the back of the boat, there are nets. The nets will drag. That's how they catch fish. These stern draggers go 150 miles off of this fishing pier to George's Bank, which is one of the richest, most profitable fishing banks in the world. At its heyday, the South Boston Fishing Pier would handle about 330 million pounds of fishing gear. That was around the 1970s. Fishing industry is definitely declined a bit. They're still out there every day. They're catching haddock and cod. Of course, we have boats around here catching some of the jewels of Boston Harbor, lobster for those delicious lobster rolls you have to have before you leave the city. That's definitely a requirement if you did leave the city of Boston. And now we're passing this white tent here, pretty hard to miss. This is the Leader Bay Pavilion. It is a concert venue in Boston. So let's see, this year we had Josh Groban, Maren Morris, we had Voodoo Dolls, Norah Jones, Alicia Keys were here. A lot of big artists playing in this beautiful pavilion. It's bigger than it looks. It can seat up to about 5,000 people. Now behind the pavilion, so closer to us, you're going to see a dock that has a very rusty front gate. If we were a little bit closer, a little bit higher, you'd be able to see that the inside of the dock is hollow. This is called a dry dock. This is how they work on large ships in the city. So what they do is they open up that front gate. All of the water rushes into that hollow place. They take the ship in, close the gate, pump all the water out, leaving the ship what is called high and dry. They work on the hull of the ship, or the body of the ship. Once that's done, open up that gate, water rushes back in, they take the ship out, and it's ready to work. So that's essentially that process. And of course, we're passing the Legal Seafoods Quality Control Center. You'll see this art installation of a codfish on top. So the eye of that codfish will change colors depending on the speed. Somewhere down, you'll be able to see it change in lots of different colors. It costs Legal Seafoods $750,000 just to build a fish. However, they do have the money. For those of you who don't know, Legal Seafoods is known as the gold star standard of seafood in New England. There are Legal Seafoods all over Massachusetts and beyond. There's actually Legal Seafoods out on Wharf where we just pulled out of. That's a nice nearby place to get some good lunch. Now behind that quality control center, you're going to see these strange looking triangular vents. They kind of look silver at the top. In fact, if you look to the left side, you'll see vents that look exactly the same. So these vents are venting the Ted Williams Tunnel, which is one of 3 tunnels and 1 subway line that run underneath the water. In fact, we just went right over the Ted Williams Tunnel. So this tunnel was built as a part of the Big Dig construction project. The point of the Big Dig was to take the highways that were on the Stilton bridges around the city and put them underwater in tunnels to make the city itself much more beautiful, give us a lot more space. It accomplished what it needed to do in the end. It did. But it took way too long, and it cost a lot more money than anyone suspected. The Big Dig was supposed to end in 1998. It didn't actually end until 2007. The original budget was $2.8 billion. In the end, when all was said and done, it cost $22 billion. It went $20 billion over budget. It became the most expensive highway project in the country. We're also passing this long white building here. You'll see it says Reebok on top. So this is the South Boston Army Warehouse and Barracks. The building was built in 1910. During both World Wars, millions of tons of equipment were loaded into this warehouse and barracks. Thousands of soldiers were boarded their ships to go to war from here. Now you can see it says Reebok on top. That's because today it is the headquarters of Reebok. It's also the headquarters for a lot of other companies, America's Test Kitchen, Toys for Tots, and many different interior design companies as well. So this is one of the few instances that I'm going to ask you to look to the left side of the boat, because right now we are passing an airport, and you may have seen some planes taking off and landing. And no need to strain your backs. We're passing this airport for quite some time, and when we turn around, we'll be passing it again. So first thing I want to mention about this airport is this long rock retaining wall. So whenever you see a rock retaining wall, that's going to tell you that that's man-made land. This is Logan International Airport. If you flew to our city, you probably flew to Logan. And it's all man-made land. It's on 2,400 acres of it. It is the 19th busiest airport in the country. Generates about $7 billion a year. A plane departs or lands to or from Logan Airport about every 90 seconds. So it's a busy, busy airport. Now all of this land they created for the airport, like I said, 2,400 acres of man-made land, an incredible amount. They created this using that wharfing out method that I mentioned at the beginning of the tour, but also using 3 former islands that now essentially sit underneath the airport that had basically just been flattened out to create this land. These islands were Governor's Island, Bird Island, and Apple Island. Governor's Island originally was owned by Massachusetts' first governor, John Winthrop, and as sweet as the name Bird Island sounds, it's called that because this is where they would dump the bodies of captured pirates, and birds would come to the island to feast on their rotting remains. Yeah, how nice. A little bit nicer is Apple Island. This is where some of the first apples and plums were planted in North America by young John Chapman. Folklore and storytelling might have you know him a little bit better as Johnny Appleseed. Now back to the right side of the boat, we're passing the Connolly Container Terminal with all of these colorful containers here. So these containers are called intermodal containers, and they interlock in these huge ships in a very specific way to make them safe for shipment out to sea, and they go all over the world carrying millions of tons of supplies per year. We actually had a pretty giant container ship leave on the last tour, so that was actually pretty cool to see. Now, of all the things that you're going to see on this tour, the Connolly Container Terminal is probably one of these sites that affects your own life the most, because 90% of non-bulk items in the U.S. get where they need to go by ship. So the shipping industry is very important. You know, if you ever ordered anything on Amazon, you definitely benefited from shipping in this country, and this is where all that happens. And if you're looking at the Connolly Container Terminal a little bit further back, so behind that long white building that I mentioned that says Reebok on top, that is the Black Falcon cruise ship terminal. So obviously no cruises in there today, but that is where they dock. So you're taking a cruise to or from Boston, you're going to dock right there. Now the shipping and fishing industry were really important parts of our city, especially in our formative years. So the first European immigrants to come to Boston were the English Puritans. They came here way back in 1630 to escape religious and political persecution from the British. And when they got here, they realized the soil is very rocky. This is not a good place to farm. They needed some way to make money from trading, so they took to the seas, which was really just the second best thing. They started fishing and they started building ships, making Boston one of the most profitable places for those industries in direct competition with the British. It's one of the reasons why the British started taxing them so much, which then eventually led to the American Revolutionary War. So every piece of land that we have passed so far on our tour has been man-made land, which is really quite incredible. But right now we are sneaking up on our first instance of natural land on our tour. A little bit ahead of us, still to the right side, you're going to see a fort. So this fort is situated on Castle Island. Castle Island used to be an island, but it was filled in with man-made land connecting it to South Boston. There used to be a castle here. It's called the Castle William, but it was destroyed by the British in 1776 after leaving after having lost the fort. The fort that you see here today is called the Fort Independence. It was fortified in 1845. It was manned during both World Wars. It never saw any action. However, at one point, Edgar Allan Poe, a very famous writer, was stationed here at the Fort Independence, and he heard a terrible, horrible tale about a man who had been entombed alive in the basement of the Fort Independence, changed the walls, sealed in with brick and mortar, and left to die. A horrible but true tale. Edgar Allan Poe, he heard this, and being a horror writer, took inspiration to write The Cask of Amontillado, which is one of his most famous literary works, famous short story of his, also about a man being entombed alive, and he took the inspiration here. Let's see if these people will wave back at us. Today, as you can see, especially today, this is a beautiful place to walk around. People have picnics out on the green. Again, it's connected to the mainland, so you can drive here. There's a lot of really great fishing around here. So we are about to turn our boat around right now. By the way, when we turn our boat around, it's going to get much windier, just in case anyone wants to know. But we're going to turn our boat around. Before we do, I want to mention that there are 34 islands in Boston Harbor. And all 34 islands together make up the Boston Harbor Islands National Park. And there are 2 islands in particular that I want to point out to you, because they together help me tell the story of the cleanup of Boston Harbor. Because if you look at this water today, you're going to see it's clean. It's very clean. We're really, really proud of this clean water. So it took a lot of work to clean it up. Our harbor used to be pretty famous for being pretty good. So, first island that I'd like to mention to you is to the right side of the boat. We're turning around. It's about to be towards the right side of the boat. It is a very tall island, and it has a rock retaining wall around it. So this is called Spectacle Island. First thing I want to mention about Spectacle Island is that rock retaining wall. Like I said with Logan Airport, rock retaining wall equals man-made land. Spectacle is not entirely man-made. It used to be one of the shortest islands in the harbor, and now it's the tallest. It grew. How does an island grow? How does that make any sense at all? Well, unfortunately, an island grows when the people of Boston decide that they need somewhere to put all of their trash. This became Boston's landfill, and for 50 years, from around 1910 to 1960, Boston and the city of Quincy put all of their trash on Spectacle Island, and thus the island grew 36 acres. That's why it is the tallest island in the harbor today. The issue with this is that we have a very windy city. We have a lot of wind here, especially in the winter. If you put a bunch of trash on an island in a windy city, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to blow up into the harbor. And that is exactly what happened. This harbor was full of trash. It was awful. You can now feel that it's windy. People of Boston decided to fix this. They decided that the best way to clean up Spectacle Island would be to simply set it all on fire. Which sounds like the decision of a 5-year-old boy, but that's what they did. This island was set on fire. There was so much trash on Spectacle Island. This fire, along with the methane gas, burned on and off for 10 years. People who lived on the coast of Boston claimed that occasionally the explosions from the methane gas would light up the night sky like it was a firework on the 4th of July. Awful. Eventually, this island did go out. They capped off the island with land they had left over from the Big Dig, and today Spectacle Island is the 2nd most visited island in Boston Harbor. People love coming here. Throughout the summer, we have ferries running to and from Spectacle Island every single day. It's just a beautiful place to go to. There's over 5 miles of hiking trails. There's a beach. You can swim out into the water now that it's no longer full of trash. And I think that the moral of the story of Spectacle Island is that you can be a dumpster fire for like 10 years and you can turn your life around. So if you're ever having a bad day, just remember Spectacle Island. That's my piece of therapy for everyone. So that's part 1 of the cleaning for Boston Harbor. I'm going to tell you part 2, and then we're going to take a break and just enjoy being out on the water in this beautiful windy day. The second reason why our harbor was dirty was because they would pump sewage into it. The idea was that the sewage was just going to go out into the ocean, we wouldn't have to worry about it. Well, as tides do, it did go out into the ocean. And then it came right back. Our harbor had a lot of sewage in it. The people of Boston sued their own city and won. So a structure was built. If you're looking to the right side of the boat, a little bit further back, you're going to see a structure that's composed of white egg shapes. In fact, there's a plane that's about to go right over it. So this is called the Deer Island Sewage Treatment Plant. Those white egg shapes are called sludge digesters. Not the most eloquent name, but it describes what they do. They pump in over 1 billion gallons of sewage through there a day from Boston and 43 surrounding communities. Essentially what they do is they separate the liquids from the solids. Liquids are turned into water that is clean enough to drink, pumped out a couple miles out to the ocean. Solids, oddly enough, are turned into fertilizer pellets. And a good amount of these fertilizer pellets are sent to Florida to grow delicious Florida oranges. Not kidding. So the next time you're going to have a nice juicy Florida orange, a nice glass of orange juice in the morning, you can just remember to thank the good people of Boston for that lovely treat. Yes, you are welcome. So on that note, I'm going to take a brief break from the narration. Everyone, please enjoy being out on the water. Again, my name is Liz. If anyone has any questions for me, please feel free to ask. If you look towards the front of the boat, it's a beautiful view of the skyline. That's always a really good picture. I will be back soon. Thank you so much.
I want to finish this. How many elephants? 20 minutes.
and he just got done reminding me and proposed. So can we have a big round of applause for them?
It's fairly wet. They just woke up. It's not walking in. She's like happy. She has a microphone full of her eyes. She's jealous. Oh, this birdie. Check this book.
welcome back. Hope everyone is enjoying their cruise. Again, congratulations to Judith and Eddie. That's absolutely wonderful. For those of you who didn't realize, they are now engaged. It's always really great to see that happen on time. So this has been a couple of times. So congratulations. So continuing, this next site that I want to mention is this beautiful Nantucket Lightship. So for those of you who don't know, Nantucket is an island off the coast of Massachusetts, and they have lightships because of the 90 miles that surround the island, the Nantucket Shoals. Shoals meaning very shallow water. So they wanted to make sure that ships were not going to run aground coming to and from the island, and to and from New York, because Nantucket is on the way to New York from Europe. So they placed 3 of these ships around the island to prevent that from happening. Now the sailors on these ships would work for 3 weeks on the ship, then they would take 3 weeks off. As you can imagine, you're on a ship for 3 weeks. It's just sitting there. You're not really doing anything. You need something to do. You need some type of hobby. So they started basket weaving. This is how we get the Nantucket Lightship baskets. These are world famous baskets that are hand woven and hand designed by the sailors. If you have one of these original Lightship baskets, you have quite an antique on your hands. One basket can cost upwards of $30,000. So a little bit further inland from here is the former site of Old Immigration Hall. So it's not there anymore, but around the 1840s, a lot of Irish immigrants came to Boston to escape the potato famine. One of the reasons why a lot of them chose Boston over New York is because Boston is actually 2 days closer to Ireland by boat than New York is. So when they got here, they would have registered at Old Immigration Hall, taken the penny ferry across the harbor to Boston proper, and tried to find work in this new world. Unfortunately, they were met with many signs on shops that said Nina. This stood for No Irish Need Apply. Boston is much better than that today. In fact, we now have the 2nd largest population of Irish people in the world, only second to Ireland herself. So now we are sneaking up on a really new part of the city. You'll see this beautiful tall ship with a pretty yellow mast. So she arrived about 3 years ago from Canada. Someone purchased her for $1.5 million. They have turned her into a high-end floating oyster bar. It's a really fun place to go to. It's called Tall Ship Boston. There's a beautiful bar on board the ship and on the patio. Unfortunately, last Sunday was the last day that they were open until about April. I'm sure that they are kicking themselves today because they would have made a lot of money today. But you know, New England weather is unpredictable. But it's called Tall Ship Boston. It's a fun place to go to. So if you're around for the summer, definitely hit up Tall Ship. It's a really the newest place to be. And now I'd like to mention there are 3 concrete blocks that are out into the harbor. In fact, if you look at where it says luxury rentals, it's basically right underneath that. So these blocks don't look like a lot, but this is the remains of the old East Boston penny ferry. This penny ferry ran from 1632 to 1951. It's the longest continuously running ferry in the country. While it was running, it was just 1 penny to get on board for all of that 300 years. However, at one point, the ferry got really popular. The owners thought, we could make a little bit more money from this, and they raised the fare to a nickel. Bostonians did what we do best. They rebelled. They stopped taking the ferry out of protest. The owners had no other choice. They had to bring the fare right back down to a penny. They learned about the resilience of Bostonians on that day. We're very resilient people. We've also just passed Clippership Wharf. So that name, Clippership Wharf, commemorates Donald Mackay. He was a famous master shipbuilder in Boston. He built clipper ships. Clipper ships were known as the Greyhounds of the Sea because they were very fast. His most famous clipper ship was the Flying Cloud. It was built in 1851. And on its first voyage, it traveled from New York to San Francisco around South America in a record time of 89 days. Thankfully, it doesn't take 89 days to get from New York to San Francisco anymore, but that was a record that stood for over a century. That record wasn't broken until the 1980s. And when a sailboat broke that 89-day record 100 years later, it could only manage to break it by 4 hours. So that's going to tell you what a master Donald Mackay was at his craft. Now, as we go throughout this tour, you will notice that a lot of the buildings that are on the water are either brand new or being built. There's a lot of brand new apartment buildings, there's brand new hotels. We have that entirely brand new innovation district with all that glass. We have this new building that says Live Eddie at the top that everyone asks me about. They're called Eddie Apartments. It's the guy who owns it's named Eddie. I guess when you have money, you can put your last name on top of the building. But they're luxury apartments. Everything on the water is really new, which confuses people because Boston is an old city. The reason why everything on the water is new is because people didn't used to want to be near it. This used to be filled with sewage and trash. Nobody wanted to be on Boston Harbor. The buildings that had been built on the harbor back then had teeny tiny windows that looked out into the harbor. Nobody even wanted to see it. It was an embarrassment. And so now, simply clean up the harbor by building that sewage treatment plant and by cleaning up Spectrum Island, you come back to our waterfront reefs. People want to be on Boston Harbor today. We passed some of those sailboats, and of course all of you are a testament to this because now people want to take a harbor cruise, so thank you. So now we're passing this green bridge here. It's the Mystic Tobin Bridge. It's called that because it runs over Mystic River. And Governor Tobin was the governor when it was built. Not the most creative name, but an interesting color. It is painted Fenway green, which is in reference to Fenway Park, where our Red Sox play. Bostonians love their sports. It's a big, big part of our culture. You'll see that as you walk around the city. See people wearing Red Sox caps and Patriots jerseys, absolutely everywhere. The bridge is longer than what it looks like from here. The entire thing is 2.5 miles long, mostly a land bridge, but around rush hour, Bostonians tend to call it the world's longest parking lot, because that's exactly how it feels when you're trying to get to work, unfortunately. Now, ahead of us, slightly to the right, you are going to see a tall stone obelisk monument. This is the Bunker Hill Monument. And I want to start talking about it now before we get to the Constitution. So the Bunker Hill Monument commemorates the Battle of Bunker Hill. The Battle of Bunker Hill didn't happen on Bunker Hill. It was supposed to. The Patriot general told his men to go to Bunker Hill. They accidentally went to Breeds Hill, and it's still called the Battle of Bunker Hill. Nobody really knows why. It might just be a mistake by a map maker. Even more odd, the Bunker Hill Monument actually sits on Breeds Hill, where the battle happened. It's this odd mistake in history. Now, this so-called Battle of Bunker Hill was one of the first major battles of the Revolution. During that battle, the Patriot general told his men, "Don't fire till you can see the whites of their eyes." You may have heard of that famous phrase before in history class. He told them that because they were running out of ammunition very quickly. He needed to say that. So we have now arrived at the Charlestown Navy Yard. We are looking at two very historic ships. This first ship is the USS Cassin Young. She is a World War II Fletcher-class destroyer. One of the last ships to be hit by a kamikaze pilot off the coast of Okinawa. When it hit, unfortunately it did kill 22 sailors, but it didn't sink the ship herself. So here she stands at the Charlestown Navy Yard as a floating museum. And on the other side of the Navy Yard, we have the jewel of our harbor, the world's famous USS Constitution. She was built in 1797. She is the oldest commissioned warship still afloat in the entire world. She's most known for a battle of 1812 off the coast of Nova Scotia against the HMS Guerriere. During that battle, the HMS Guerriere noticed that her cannonballs were bouncing off the Constitution. And that caused someone to exclaim, "Ha! Her sides are made of iron." Her sides are not actually made out of iron, but it did give her the nickname Old Ironsides. Her sides are made out of 22-inch thick Georgia live oak. She sank the HMS Guerriere in only 35 minutes. And at the end of the battle, she had 19 cannonballs stuck in her side. That's going to tell you how strong a girl she is. She has fought in 33 battles. She has not lost one. In order to maintain her active duty status, she must travel at least 1 nautical mile per year. So every 4th of July, I'll take her out. She'll travel down to the Fort of Independence where we turn around. She'll basically do the same route that we do. She will fire a 21-gun salute from her very own cannons to honor her memory. So now we are passing the Leonard P. Ziegler Bridge. You'll notice on top of this bridge, two structures here. These are built to look like the Bunker Hill Monument. The cables that are coming from these structures are to look like the rigging of the Constitution. So it was built with Boston's history in mind. It runs right over the Charles River. The Charles River has been nicknamed the most educated river in the country because it runs right past Harvard, MIT, Boston University. It's a very intelligent river. And also behind us in the bridge, you can't even see it right now because the sun is directly above it. But you'll see TD Garden, home of the Boston Bruins and the Boston Celtics. If anyone wants to take a picture of that, we just gotta wait for the sun to get out of the way.
Yeah. If they're still there.
So now we are passing the North End, this neighborhood with all these brick buildings here. So the North End is a predominantly Italian neighborhood. And by the way, if anyone's wondering, where's a good place to get dinner? Because it's getting closer to dinner time. Go to the North End. It has some of the best Italian food, incredible Italian restaurants. This is the food mecca of Boston. You've got to go to the North End at some point to get dinner. Of course, go to Mike's Pastries and get a cannoli. Mike's Pastries is some of the best cannolis and puff pastries around. That's another famous staple of our city as well. I'll also point out the White Church at the North End. This is the Old North Church. It is known for Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. So the sexton of the church, on that April night, was told one if by land, two if by sea. He saw the British soldiers coming by sea, so he hung 2 lanterns at the top of that church to signal to Paul Revere and 12 other people, who then rode horseback through the streets, letting the people of Massachusetts know that the British soldiers were coming. Paul Revere got all the way to Lexington before he was arrested. The very next morning was the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the very first battle of the Revolution. First shots were fired. These were called the shots heard round the world. And now we're passing Constitution Wharf, named that because this is where the U.S. has the Constitution was built. Today, as you can see, it's a Coast Guard station. So we have a couple of Coast Guard ships here. The William Chadwick, which we just passed, that is a fast response cutter. It's just built this year. So that ship's doing harbor patrol, search and rescue, national defense if needed. And we should be bringing in, I think, 6 more of those once all of this construction is done. The U.S. Coast Guard was founded in 1790 by Alexander Hamilton. Originally, it was part of the U.S. Treasury. During war times, it was part of the U.S. Navy. And as of 2003, it's now part of Homeland Security. Their motto is Semper Paratus, which is Latin for all good. So now we are passing Battery Wharf. The brick buildings on top. This is Battery Wharf Hotel. Battery Wharf is where the 54th Regiment of the U.S. Civil War ship battery. Very important regiment in U.S. history. First all African-American volunteer regiment in the country. You may have seen the award-winning film Glory, starring Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman. That'll tell you a little bit more about that remarkable part of American history. And a little bit further inland from here, Boston Common, there's a monument that's dedicated to those brave soldiers as well. I'll also point out the walkway that's hugging these piers and wharves right here. This is the Boston Harbor Walk. It's quite a newly constructed walk. It's built to bring Bostonians back to their roots, back to their waterfront. The entire walk is 47 miles long and counting. It's very long. That's because there's a new law in place. If you are going to build out onto the water, you have to include part of the Boston Harbor Walk. The Bostonians should always be able to see their waterfront, where they come from. It's really built as a response to the fact that our harbor today is just so clean. And there are 2 places around here where there is no harbor walk. One is where the Coast Guard is, that's just for security reasons. The second is the Union Wharf that we're passing right now. In fact, it's kind of, I know the sun's in your eyes, it's swimming down Boston Harbor. But basically, right underneath the sun, you'll see these 3-story brick buildings here. however, in these condos. There's 3 stories, they have 3 bedrooms, 2 parking spots, which is nice if you live in the city. And you can buy one of these for $4 million. And now we are passing a beautiful view of Boston skyline, minus the sun. I will point out the clock tower right in the middle. This is the Custom House Tower. It was Boston's very first skyscraper, fully constructed in 1914. Today it's a Marriott Hotel. Now, interesting tidbit about the Custom House Tower. There are 4 clocks on top of this tower. None of them are really going to tell you the same time. This has to do with the wind. We have a windy city. So when it gets really windy, the wind will move the hands of the clock. So you can see time speed up on one side, maybe even time slow down on the other. Bostonians lovingly call it a 4-faced liar. So it is a Marriott hotel. In fact, if you go up to where that clock is, it's pretty cool. You can like see like the inner workings of the clock. I don't think you even have to like check in like to a hotel room to do that. I've been up there and like watched the sun go down, which is really fun. So that's always a fun thing to do. All right, so dealing with the sun here. So if you're looking at the Custom House Tower, to the right of that, a little bit shorter, you're going to see a white building with a gold dome. And then in front of that is a green dome. So that green dome is called Quincy Market. It's the oldest open-air market in the country. Behind that, the white building with the gold dome is called Faneuil Hall. It's called the Cradle of Liberty. This is where the Sons of Liberty met to discuss the Revolution. Today it's a great place to eat. It's a great place to shop. That's about a 2-minute walk from where we're going to dock. That is some really great restaurants. Good place to eat, and also a good place to learn a little bit more about history. Now, because it's the end of the day, I want to tell one of my favorite stories about Boston history. This is one of the oddest stories. A lot of people haven't heard it. This is the odd story of the Boston Molasses disaster. This is something that happened at the North End, that Italian neighborhood where we all go get dinner. So, at the North End, in 1919, they had a very large vat of molasses. And they had all this molasses because there were 8 rum distilleries around the area that would use it to create rum. It was a particularly warm day in January. The vat had not been made very well, and it exploded. And 2.5 million gallons of molasses rode down Commercial Street, going 35 miles per hour. That's pretty fast for molasses, which has a reputation for being slow. It was a horrible disaster. Unfortunately, it was not without fatalities. It killed 22 people, over a dozen horses, destroyed houses and homes. Terrible tragedy, but weird of all things. It was molasses that did this massive damage. Some people claim that on a really hot day, you can still smell molasses at the North End. It's sunk into some of the original wood. I think you're just smelling nice pastry. It's not quite convinced. But if you go to the North End, take a whiff, see if you can smell it. But it did take 6 years to clean it all up. But the day after it happened, the Boston Herald, which is a newspaper, it's still in print today, they wrote about it with the big bold headline, Boston Molasser. A little too soon for Boston Herald, I know. So, we are about to pull right back into Long Wharf. Last site that I want to mention to you, towards the bow, the New England Aquarium. This is a great place to go to. So we actually run the aquarium's whale watches. We have whale watches. We're having whale watches all the way until Thanksgiving. There are still whales out there. It's really fun to do. There's some naturalists on board, someone like me, but instead of knowing about history, they know all about the whales. And you can't make a whale watch at the aquarium. It's just a nice place to go to. It has over 3,000 species of fish, over 20,000 animals. It is also home to one of my favorites, Myrtle the turtle. Myrtle the turtle is very famous in the city. They believe she's about 100 years old. She looks fabulous for her age, so go and say hi to Myrtle. She's a beautiful girl. All right, so we're about to pull right back into Long Wharf. I want to thank everyone so much for coming with us on this beautiful day. Thank you so much for being here. Please enjoy the rest of your stay in our city. And of course, biggest congrats to Judith and Eddie for their engagement. That was so wonderful to see. Special thank you to Keith, oh my goodness, Captain Keith and the crew for all of their hard work. As you exit the gangway, please make sure to use the handrails and be very careful. And if you're looking for me at the end of the tour, I will be at the end of the gangway. I'm the bright red shirt. Can't miss me. Very much appreciated. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your day in the city.